If you're a startup founder from the Balkans, you'll eventually need a US company to sell into the US market, use Stripe, or raise VC money. But here's the problem. US lawyers charge between $600 and $1,000 an hour. Opening a bank account as a non-resident is a nightmare. You need a US phone number, operating address, and there are a lot of hidden costs plus lawyer lingo you can't understand. This is why we have partnered with Neobase. They are a team of Balkan founders who have been exactly where you are. They're 10 times cheaper than US lawyers, and they handle everything end to end, from the corporation, bank account setup, tax filings, and basically leaving you to focus on your own business. Head to neobase.co, book a free consultation, and mention Scale SEE to get 10% discount off your LLC or C Corp setup. Today's guest is someone who has been quietly shaping the SaaS ecosystem in Central and Eastern Europe. Leonard Eldić is the founder of SaaStanak, now the largest SaaS community in Central Eastern Europe, bringing together founders, operators, and investors who are building and scaling recurring revenue businesses across the region. Through SaaStanak and years of working closely with SaaS companies, Leonard has seen firsthand why some B2B startups scale to millions in ARR while others stall at 20K MRR and never break through. Today we're going deep into what actually makes SaaS companies scalable, what holds B2B startups back from growth, which channels and strategies work in 2026, and how founders from Southeast Europe can compete globally. Leonard, welcome to the show. Wanted to ask you the first question. Before you started building SaaStanak, which is the largest SaaS community in Central and Eastern Europe, what led to its creation and what were you doing before?
Yeah, so I was a sales rep. I worked at Sharp Mobile, which is a German SaaS subscription analytics software. And then I worked at SaaS Group, which is an M&A boutique shop. So basically they bought SaaS companies, and I kind of thought to myself, I want to meet other companies in Zagreb and potentially sell Sharp Mobile to them. But that didn't turn out to be the primary motivation. Rather, actually organizing this event was pretty interesting for me. I actually have a history of organizing events in the past. I organized like concerts, demo festivals, stuff like that. So this was like a natural mix of two of my passions. And yeah, it kind of took off from there. It was one meetup to basically from Zagreb to Belgrade to Ljubljana and other cities. And then we organized the first conference and second. And now we're here with 3,000 people in the community and organizing the third annual conference.
Cool, amazing. Before starting SaaStanak, what patterns did you see that SaaS founders in this region need some kind of a community like this? Like, what were the early signals, early signs where you're like, yeah, this is a potential community, this is a potentially good business model that I can live off of, in a sense?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good business model. It's good enough for me to live for now, but yeah, it's a hard model because it's events business. But the problems that SaaS founders here have are usually GTM related. So, I mean, essentially, we kind of had years and years of talking about investments and raising funds and like investors taking care of this region or actually noticing this region. And now when it's here, you have like all of the VC funds are active here. You have plenty of accelerators, great accelerators like SEE. You have a lot of institutional help. And now, like, what do you actually do with that money? And I think like the core question is like, where do you spend that money efficiently so you can get ROI or actually growth out of it? So this is what SaaStanak is kind of all about, and what is the primary topic of almost all of our meetups and the conference. We try to find operators and founders from abroad that can come here and basically help our founders to scale. And essentially, other than that, like connected to this topic is the hiring topic. Like, I mean, everyone says, and all the VCs when they come here, they say you have great engineering talent, but you lack GTM talent. And I don't think that's true. There is, I think I read a report of like 300,000 people work in sales in ex-Yugoslavia region. So we have salespeople. The problem is, are they senior enough? Are they actually skilled enough to work with the startups that we have here? And do our founders have the capacity to onboard them and ramp them to a level where they're profitable for these companies. So I think like these questions are something that need to be answered, and the best founders in the region actually answered them or actually worked on them first before shiny offices and all that other stuff.
Everybody says SaaS businesses are very much scalable. They're easy to replicate it in other markets. But what are like the structural elements that must be in place for that to be true, in terms of like pricing, retention, clarity on the ICP, the distribution model? Like what is your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, SaaS is essentially a distribution model, so it's software as a service. So now when you have this dichotomy of AI versus SaaS, in essence, like AI native businesses are mostly also SaaS businesses because they're subscription based. But yeah, the SaaS business, like what makes a SaaS business, let's say scalable, is mostly repeatable sales process, which kind of happens, and like you kind of see it with like most categories where SaaS business, when it has a repeatable sales process and a large enough target addressable market, it can scale. So if you look at different industries or verticals, wherever you have a point solution or like a system of record type of tool where has deep enough penetration for the market and for the end user to use to supplement their core systems, then you probably have a tool or something that people can want to buy. So essentially, how it differs from other, let's say, sales models or distribution models is it's fully on cloud. It's paid by subscription, so you have this recurring revenue, which enables these businesses to scale and invest this money back into development or growth, which makes this usually super profitable business if run well. Most SaaS businesses run with 80% gross margins, which is different now from like AI native businesses and SaaS businesses that are implementing AI in their products, and subscriptions are suffering right now with lower gross margins. So this business essentially is a very good investable business. And given if like you have a really good product and you can grow, of course, a lot of investors want to take a piece of it or invest into further growth.
So I want to ask you a question. Out of the startups that you see here in Southeast Europe, what percentage of them are zombie startups, or they have plateaued at a certain level of revenue, which is 10, 15K, 20K in MRR, and they're there for like the last year and haven't seen a huge amount of growth in their revenue? What percentage is that, and how do they break out of that
Well,
that situation?
I don't know about the exact percentage, but like it's a total,
approximation.
I don't know. Like I would say like 20-30% startups have this, like at least here when you see region, like there is 20-30% cohort that is not moving that much. The rest are like either, going to their deathbed or they're growing, but it's normal because most of the other global markets are also in the same problem. So you have like general growth stalling in SaaS, and it is due to many factors, one including AI and like AI budgets. A lot of what used to be software budgets are now AI budgets. So SaaS businesses that have not adapted to this new paradigm actually cannot really sell because there's no budget for them. But you also have, I mean, in a lot of cases, especially regionally, you have businesses that are just constrained with their target market, which is very common. Like they create a SaaS business which is hyper local, or they're aiming at a certain type of customer that exists only in Serbia, Croatia, Slovenia, and that kind of hinders their growth. And if you look at like how much a SaaS business can potentially actually grow, there is actually Jason Cohen from VP Engine has a pretty good method of calculating how much you can grow, because when you look at it, for example, if your SaaS business has 500 new customers coming in every month, then you have 5% churn, or every year you have 5% churn. You basically divide these numbers and you can have maximum of 10,000 customers that you can serve, because your churn will eventually be large enough. It's basically your churn cohort is the same as new customer cohort. So that's your ceiling. So you can essentially calculate it like if all things stay the same, our marketing, sales, product, etc., will get to this number, and that's it. We'll plateau, and that's what happens to most SaaS businesses. They actually start slowing down when they approach these numbers, which, as I said, like this is a very simple heuristic, so can be changed, but like they slowly die as they or the growth dies as they approach that number, and then they immediately or actually it gets stalled completely, and at that point, like you can basically decide you can go for profitability, which is also a viable option. I think like if you have investors on board, that's usually not the viable possibility. You need to solve for that. They have to get liquidity first. But there is nothing wrong about like running a million, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million ARR SaaS business with like something like 50, 60% EBITDA. Like that's also possible. People live off of these businesses very well. So essentially, like what you said, I mean, in terms of like stalling, that's a problem depending on how you're looking at it. So, and also like some acquirers really like those businesses. So
Yeah. No, but we see a lot of companies who come to us, for example, and they say, oh, we're at 15, 20K in MRR. It's stable. It's sometimes growing. It's sometimes going down, but we haven't found the right GTM formula. That's their thinking and their thought. And like they find some customers, they try to do LinkedIn outbound, they try to do some LinkedIn inbound, they try to go to events and conferences and stuff like that, but they haven't cracked the actual formula of how to have a repeatable sales strategy, right? They maybe have like 5 to 10 enterprise customers or mid-sized customers where they charge, I don't know, between 200 and like 500 a month or something like that, and they're there, but a year later they're in a very similar position. Do you have any ideas how we can, what advice would you give them in this situation?
I think like the important part is like, are those existing customers staying, right? So if they're in the same position because they onboarded new customers and those latter ones they churn, then you basically have a like a product problem, or like actually you're not solving the problem that well. So I think like going back to like what problem you're solving and what's the actual product, it makes sense here, because if the customers that you already closed are not staying, then obviously there is something wrong. It can be also a pricing problem, but I doubt it. Like most SaaS businesses price too low, and especially in the region, they price too low, and maybe like that can also be a part of the problem where they're I mean, as you said, if you're selling it to an enterprise customer for 500 euros, that's probably for them it's a discretionary spend, it's not a critical software, and essentially it doesn't fit into like some predefined budgets, and it's easily cut. So, and also like if you're going to new customers with that price tag, like they might not seem your software relevant enough. So essentially, like what I'm trying to say is, if the problem is big enough for you to solve and you're actually solving it, these customers are going to stay. So if you cannot grow because you cannot close new customers, okay, then it's a GTM problem. So you can go out and try different stuff, as you said, like LinkedIn outbound, etc. But I mean, I think founder basically needs to go back and see how he closed these customers. Can he get referrals or whatever? But that's like an easier solvable problem than the product problem, because if he's just like filling the hole that's basically constantly getting dripped out with new customers or with old customers, then you basically need to revamp like what problem you're solving and how do you do it. So I mean, I don't know, it's not very useful advice, but I think like you have to go to the root cause. Like I think you should be very honest with yourself if your product actually creates or solves the problem for the customer.
I wanted to talk to you about channels, way that startups can get to actual customers. AI is changing that dramatically. So you can use AI, you can use different tools to have bots on Reddit. You can use it to have bots on Twitter. You can use AI to write your LinkedIn posts and to outreach to people on LinkedIn or email or wherever. So AI bots and AI agents are taking over this kind of direct outreach and some part of the indirect outreach as well. And the channels are getting more and more, I would say, saturated. Yes, exactly. How should startups think about what channel would make the most sense? And what have you seen? What channels have you seen that that some startups are really leveraging quite well and getting a lot of customers?
I think you need to start with the basics. Like you need proper SEO, you need actual content. Like this stuff, although like it's hyper production of everything, this stuff still matters. So I mean, you mentioned Reddit bots and stuff like that, but like you cannot need to invest in being searchable through AI tools and Google.
So AEO as well.
Yeah.
SEO
I mean,
and
like
AEO.
it's kind of. I'm not a SEO expert, but it seems like it's the same thing. Like
Yeah.
If you're good in SEO, you're gonna show up in AI rankings as well. I think like LinkedIn, for example, like I mean, in terms of like founder posting in LinkedIn, is an interesting thing, and I think people should do it. Although like it takes a lot of time, and you can hire a ghostwriter and you can do it, but I essentially think like you should post from your heart, or rather like what you actually care about. Which means like I used to read a lot of blogs from people. I'm sad that like blogging is kind of dead, but this is something that like you have a voice and you can use that voice, and that kind of filters out a lot of people that are maybe not potential fit if you actually talk about some topic in detail. Not for our founders, but I've heard about some businesses abroad that founders have Substacks, which are like directly aimed at the vertical they are serving. So if it's shipping software, the guy is gonna talk about shipping. So stuff like that usually works. Also, it's about the medium that kind of suits you. If you're a video guy, then do video, or like words, and you can do articles. But essentially, like I don't think like without even having AI in our hands, like this hyper production would happen anyways. Like people are posting way more, and essentially you kind of have to do it because everyone else has to do it. A lot of AI founders, they're posting on Twitter, for example. So like not even LinkedIn, they're basically focused on Twitter. So you kind of want and need that. And the reason you're doing it a lot of times is not even like the customers, it's also the investors and broader like your potential hires and stuff. So going to the channels part, I essentially think like when you cover your basics, you need to focus on certain like places where your customers are, which means like if your customers are mostly remote and they essentially work from like from everywhere, you can basically always go like pure outbound, like including phone, LinkedIn, everything. So you do like a full outbound campaign. The other part is like if there's certain type of professionals, you can create certain type of content for them. Then like you can use events. Events, I think, like I'm biased as I run an event company, but I think are basically becoming more and more reliable channel, because everything else is kind of getting less reliable.
Yeah.
So it's not that like events have been similar or same for tens and tens of years, but right now like a lot of companies are investing in their own events. So especially bigger ones, they're basically hosting their target customers and their customers and their, let's say, potential customers together. So I think this is an interesting channel if you can afford it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't run a SaaS business, but what I can tell you is I think like people should be out more. Like you should be present, like doing podcasts like this. You should constantly, as a founder, you should constantly find opportunities where you can represent yourself and the company in cheap way, not trying to pay for every exposure, and like actually being close with friend groups and communities that are close to your customers. That kind of usually like word of mouth is such a powerful tool that people underutilize or they don't expand on it, which I think is that's definitely a missed opportunity.
I saw an Instagram video where these like young entrepreneurs, they started a company and they were like, all of the channels are saturated with AI bots. So what we did is we used ChatGPT to create 150 customized letters for 150 potential customers that we have, and we just drove around like California and put those letters at the head office. It took them like 2 days of road tripping, and they managed to get like 4 customers, enterprise customers, in less than a couple of months. And I think that was a very interesting story because at the end of the day, you have to go to where everybody else is not going, right? So in that sense,
But Vlad, that's really not a new thing, because so I think people have short-term memory. 2021 and 2022 was very interesting in SaaS because it was like the peak SaaS hubris. Like I remember you would walk on like SaaS, or the biggest SaaS conference in San Mateo, you would walk one aisle and you would see so many tools like edit Salesforce through Slack, edit Salesforce through Google Sheets. There was like 20 different solutions to edit Salesforce through something. And basically you had plenty of companies like doing all kinds of outbound. And it was super saturated. I remember like email rates, reply rates like went down, and people did exactly this. Like, so sales rep would go, you had services that you could, I don't know if they're still active, you could hire, like you go and you actually do a postcard or something, and it's a SaaS service that sends postcards for you to your customers. So like this thing, I actually received one when I was a sales rep for fun. But these things, like they exist. I think like it's viable for people who are like to going in real life. It's viable for people who can afford it and they're close. Like if your customers are in Sacramento, you're in Serbia, like it's not
you can't do that yet.
Yeah, it's not a viable strategy. But what you can
unless
is,
you use that SaaS product.
Yeah, you can use something like that. But like I think generally what you want is find a event, conference, whatever that's close to your customers. Try to meet as many people around your customers that are like community leaders or like some kind of people who can actually help you, and then befriend them and make them a certain like type of your sales channel through affiliates or like some other favors. I mean, if it's cevapi and drinks in Belgrade, then that's what it is. But I think we from Balkans have a special ability to make other people friends. So I think you should leverage that.
Yeah. So talk to us about that. I mean, there's a huge shift in how conferences are supposed to be run, and people are, I think a lot of people told me this, they are tired of the same boring conference model where they're going in, they're listening to people who have scaled businesses to 100 million, 1 billion or whatever. And they're like, yeah, but I can watch a podcast episode with him on YouTube, which is better than what he's talking about now. And why would I waste my time and physically come to a place to just listen to some workshops and stuff like that? So a lot of people are using conferences, as you said, only for the networking. That's their only goal, right? Yeah. How do you see the events space changing? And you also mentioned that you are seeing companies wanting to do their own events. So talk to us a little bit about that, and how can startups both figure out the best conferences to go this year and figure out a way if they can make their own small webinar event or whatever that can get them customers.
Yeah, I mean, the comment on conferences in general. Look, I'm a kind of guy that goes to a conference and I spend my whole day in front of the stage, not watching the keynote. There is other people who are actually very keen, and I can tell when I look at SaaStanak's audience, like you can see 60% of people are there for the content, and those are people that when we announce speakers and we're looking at and like think through like what they're gonna get from the conference, those are people that we kind of take care of in terms of like speaker selection. The rest are people who are here to network, and they're here to network for different reasons. Some are just like here for fun, like they want to have like meet peers and have fun with them, and that's it. Some have a sales incentive or like some kind of investment incentive. Some want to find like helpers, people who can actually guide them through a certain step in the company. So I think like this is a very rough summarization. Like it can go very much deeper. And I'm actually trying to make we're trying to make a product that can help us internally in SaaStanak actually figure out like why are these people like granularly, why are they coming and buying the tickets and coming to the event. So that's one thing. And I think like when it comes to this general boredness or like not being happy with the conference model, I can totally relate with that, because I think general conferences serve so little value for the money that you're actually paying. A lot of times, like bigger conferences out abroad, like you pay ticket of 600, 700,000 euros, you don't even get a lunch, or you don't get this basic treatment of being a guest. Like when you go to a movie theater, like you're a guest. You know, if you go to a I don't know, some theater in general, or like a football stadium or whatever, you're a guest wherever you go. So like it depends on, if you go to a football stadium, you buy the ticket for 30, 50 euros and you get certain type of treatment. And I think like when we talk about like conferences, the treatment never matches the actual price. And there is always a 2-3 tier system where you have like those, you know, standard, which is like not important people. Then you have like a VIP, etc. And I think like this is where a lot of this context is lost, and people are generally unhappy. And these events are pretty massive, so you need to rely on apps to meet people, which I think is also not the best solution. Apps kind of motivate a very transactional approach to networking. What you want, I think, is like something like serendipity. Like you actually meet someone on the hallway, you kind of have this random conversation. That's what you want. And I think organizers are struggling here because they have either too many people or not the right type of people in the same room. And it just doesn't work in a lot of ways. So you need to kind of manually create this environment and like have this one-on-ones and stuff. So I think these are kind of problems, along with a lot of other problems that we're trying to solve for our conference, but also what I see when I get an invite to some conference in, you know, I look at the venue and I see like, okay, this is going to be like this way or another. Like it already has certain like chore elements to it, which I think is bad. Like you don't want other people thinking like of your conference as a chore. Like, you want them to be joyful about it. So I think like organizers will take a step back and actually rethink this, because some events have falling attendance. I can see that like for the events I visit, they just have falling attendance and less sponsors, less money involved, and they're turning into like meeting places or like just meeting rooms. Like that's fine, but that's not a conference. Like that's not a show. There is no shared spectacle in it. It's basically something like where I go and just do a lot of one-on-ones. That's it. That's my rant on it. But I think you mentioned also these private events that companies are doing. And this is the kind of the part of the reason why conferences started sucking, and then like vendors started creating their own conferences, which are kind of like basically here's the tension. Like if you're organizing an event which is of, let's say, SaaStanak scale, you have 500 people. The event costs something like 200,000-300,000 euros. So you need to, in like around 60% of your revenue is ticket sales, 40% is sponsorships. So you need to do stuff where you actually give sponsors some value. And if this tension kind of brings about like bad sponsor placements, be it speaking slots or like annoying stuff for attendees, you kind of ruin the attendee experience. And a lot of conferences kind of basically you get too many sponsors or too much sponsor attention, and that kind of ruins you. And essentially like what these vendor conferences do is they have one sponsor, which is the vendor. So they have full control of the agenda.
Yep.
And they can provide like any kind of experience they want. They don't have this tension built in where like other people, other stakeholders want something.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big bank. I invested a lot of money as a sponsor, so I need to have my own panel, which is focused on fintech, and there is no fintech audience at all. But this is what I have to do.
Exactly, and this is a big problem with bigger conferences, or like conferences that have large TAM. You know, they have like a very broad topic. I hate those conferences because I don't care about like 90% of the topics there, like, and it doesn't relate to me, although it's a tech conference, and I'm a tech guy. So,
like for example, a web summit, let's say.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. I mean, obviously, it's a show. You should visit one time in life. Like, there's a lot of elements about it that are, very, very interesting. And as a startup, you should be there at least once. But I think like you definitely have to think about conferences in like two lenses. One, what is useful for me, like as a person, like in terms of like growing, scaling my business, growing as a person, finding new people who are similar to me, etc. And then what's important for my business. And usually you were over-indexed on what's important for my business early on, and then later on you might think about, hey, like this is maybe important for me. Or like you have founders, especially like that come to SaaStanak as well, that do both. Because you kind of need the knowledge, or you need like this experience and skill of other people who went through it to, create an environment for this first part, which is like, how do I find and acquire these customers? But yeah, I mean, we kind of went off the rails here.
No. It's a very interesting topic. On that note, you guys have the largest SaaS community in the region. How big is the community? SaaStanak has been running SaaStanak, the conference, has been running for the last 3 years. This is going
to be the third edition.
The third year. How does SaaStanak look like today? And it's going to be from the 25th to the 27th of May, correct? In Seaside in Croatia. How does that conference look like, and how do you balance out what the sponsors want and what do attendees actually need on the conference?
Yeah. So, I mean, SaaStanak community basically has 3,000 people on our email list, newsletter list. Those are 3,000 people who visited our events, which sometimes when I think about it, it sounds crazy, but we did over 80 events, I think, so far in the last 4 years. So, and we did it in all the Balkan cities, major Balkan cities. So I think Sarajevo was last one from the list, like only capital we didn't visit.
Didn't visit yet.
Yeah, didn't visit yet, but we did last year. And now we're actually expanding with like, cities like Banja Luka, Novi Sad, first time. It's going to be end of March, which I'm really excited for. But we actually like acquired the full list through events, and that's something like going back to these growth channels, which I had a LinkedIn post about it. Like, if you don't know what to do, start hosting. Like, you're hosting me right now for the podcast, just start hosting people for the events or whatever you do with whatever is your specialty. You can actually, make friends, make allies, and like advance further. But yeah, the community itself is 3,000 people. The conference has usually like last year we had 300 people. This year we're having 500 people. Plus we have 2 private events that we are organizing with 2 sponsors. And this is maybe an answer to your question, where like our sponsors from last year basically came back to us and said, hey, like, what if I bring like 50 people that I like here? Like, let's say our moat here is that we are organizing it in a vacation resort, and I'm very, very passionate about hospitality in general. So essentially they saw like, okay, they participated in SaaStanak, but what if we use some stage or some place in the vacation resort where they can host additional number of people and they can basically create a conference of their own. So we landed on this deal where we create the brand, we own the conference, they are the founding partner of the conference. So we just announced 2 days ago P2 Coast, which is a consumer app conference, and it's basically Paddle's target accounts and existing accounts that they have coming together. And this is interesting because for them it's a new lead funnel. So people who want to come to conferences, we already got a lot of signups. So maybe they're not the best fit for the conference, but they're maybe a good fit for the salespeople that can reach out. But also for them is like they're going to create so much content, so much goodwill from it. They're going to motivate their existing accounts to basically talk with their new potential accounts, and it's a but I hope and I expect a very nice treat for both groups. And for us at SaaStanak, let's say what's most important is that we share the after parties and basically the lunch, coffee breaks and stuff like that together. So we create an even bigger environment for people who dare from B2B SaaS side. So SaaStanak kind of was the, let's say, future vision, what's the evolution of it is plenty of like smaller retreat style conferences plus the public conference, which is SaaStanak. And we might want to or need to like have a new brand which sits on top of it. So SaaStanak is like one of the brands to actually make it, right now when I'm explaining it, it takes more than 2 sentences to explain it, which is bad. But that's kind of the future vision. And I think generally when it comes to like tech and conferences, like what we can offer and where we can go even deeper is the hospitality element. We control the full environment. You have your hotel stay, lunches, dinners, breakfast in the same place. Essentially like all of the touch points from you landing and coming to the resort to like you leaving can be managed by us, which I think makes this like a totally different experience than going to a different conference somewhere else. So we're gonna, double down on that. More hospitality.
More resort-style conferences, so that people can enjoy, relax, and also make business.
Yeah, I think what I tell to sponsors as well, and that's also you asked about it. What happens is when you travel to a conference somewhere is you spend more time in travel and logistics than with your actual customers or like FaceTime with people there. So we switched it around where like if you're staying in a resort, you basically like that's it. You're just walking everywhere. You're not commuting anywhere, which I think is a crucial point. And like when you see these people from breakfast to dinner, like there is no way you don't make friends. Like, that's the proximity is like the secret factor. And then you don't need the app or something like for networking. It's just like put people together and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Amazing. That sounds very, very interesting. So what can startups from this region get from your conference? What's the biggest value, the biggest driver for them to come?
I think peers. Essentially, like if you're a content guy, you like to go to talks and workshops. You have plenty of stuff there, like everything from like GTM engineering. Like we're gonna have people who are teaching other people how to use tools. Then like all of the other stuff, and you have like founder sessions that are closed doors, so only SaaS founders can attend. And then like there we have like one founder of a 400 million ARR company talking about like he's scaling to that number. So like stuff like that, that's what's very valuable. But essentially what you're trying to find are like-minded people. I think SaaStanak stands for like a down-to-earth community. So people who are actually doing stuff. I think what you won't find is a lot of like bullshit peddlers. In a way, you're gonna find people who might not be on the like exact headlines, or they are, but they're normal, down to earth, and actually happy to chat with you about your problem as well. So this is where I think like we excel, and people who come get most value. And I mean, you're gonna find companies like this one, like Farseer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What is one SaaS company from SEE region we should all watch out for, and why? Why Farseer? What is Farseer?
Shout out to Farseer. Now, first of all, it has a really good founding team. We have hosted Matija Nakic. She's the CEO of the company for I think 2 years of the conference and several meetups. And they have a very clear, bright vision of what they're building, which is an FP&A software. And like they're solving a really clear problem in a market that is a crowded one. It's hard, and they're actually doing it and doing it really well. So I'm super excited about them. I think like generally what they can manage to do is they created an environment of success, and people want to work at this company. They kind of want to share the vision of the company, and they have the ambition to actually do it. And I think like, I mean, I'm more like a bootstrapper type of guy, but I admire their mentality of like going at it like fully or not going at it at all. And that's why like they raised Series A recently, and it was I think 7 million or something like that. and they're gonna scale. And I think like that's pretty cool.
Cool. What questions do founders never ask you, but actually should ask you?
Who can help me with this? I think like founders usually ask me about hiring questions and like, do you have a guy for this or something like that? But like, who is my peer? I think like that's something that founders rarely ask, is like, who actually is at my place right now or has been at my place and can help me in that way. I feel like there is an ego element in founders where at some point you stop listening to what other people are doing, what other people are saying, and you kind of focus on yourself, which is okay, totally fine. But sometimes like the solution to your problem is just having a cup of coffee with someone who has crossed that chasm. And I think like here I'm always happy to offer like connect people and offer like solution in terms of like this person actually did it, you should talk with them.
No, definitely. I had this moment yesterday where I was like, the one of the biggest sources of help to your business and to you figuring out what you need to do with your business is actually your perceived competition, right? So I had a really nice talk with Sanya, who we filmed yesterday for the podcast. She can be regarded as my competitor in a sense. They are an accelerator program in this region. They're focused on helping startups grow and help them get investments and whatever. But actually, she's not my competition, right? She's doing a media company that's sitting on top of the accelerator programs. And when I've spoken with her, I've gotten more value out of conversation with her because we're building a very similar thing in a similar structure. And my way of thinking and her way of thinking are similar in a sense, but you get a lot of valuable information from that. Whereas if I wanted to speak with somebody who's an expert in acceleration programs, who has built, 20 accelerators or has built a VC fund, I wouldn't be able to, even though they are multimillionaires or whatever, I wouldn't be able to get that specific amount of information that I needed at that certain specific moment in time, right? So I think that's a really good thing that founders should really think about, is how do I get in a room with other people who are building a very similar thing in a similar industry. They're maybe my competition, but they're not really. And figure out ways that we can both benefit, right? Sitting with you as well, right? You're building SaaStanak, you're building a community as well as building a conference. I'm doing a similar thing. We can say that we're competitors, but we're actually not, right? In a sense,
unless you go into events. I'm just kidding, but you are going into
events. Yeah, we
right?
are going to events, but our goal is to have a specific one event which is going to be focused on this region, but helping them scale to the United States. So that's our moat. Yeah. Figuring out ways for this region to connect better with the US market, right? And connect with investors with different programs in the US and all those things. So we can say that we're competitors, but we're actually not, right? Your moat is founders with other founders, SaaS businesses in the region, and connecting them together. Ours is connecting this region with the US. That's it, right? But talking with you to today helps me a lot to understand how I can make my conference better, because, for example, the commute problem, that's a really big problem, right?
Commute, food, breaks, like how far is outside from the venue, like people need to have like some, fresh air, generally how to make people go back into sessions. And then you have like a lot of this production stuff, like when you start thinking about it, are you going to use projectors, screens, how do you do like all of the sprint materials and like all of the stuff in an elegant way? How do you represent sponsors? Do you give them stage slots? Like there is millions of decisions that go into it, and like my advice for you, like going into it first, is just like just do it. I think like unless you do it and make some mistakes, I was at Unlock It yesterday, and I was talking with Tanya and Kuzman, and like we chatted, and they did a lot of things well. But one thing they screwed up was water. They didn't have available water for attendees, and that
was very hard to get.
I got like a PTSD flashback for like first SaaStanak conference when we screwed up. We didn't have coffee for the attendees in the afternoon, so it was like people murder you for this stuff, and I think like everything else, like they don't really notice, but it's a lot of tiny quality details that you can add, and happy to help you whatever you need.
Yeah. But year on year, you kind of get better in
Yeah, of
that
course.
sense.
Like you get like this like this ability to notice and just like be super hyper focused on like certain details that you're just going more and more like in detail that people don't see or understand. But I think it's like that means like you're actually interested in what you're doing. Like if you want to dive deeper, and that's maybe for founders as well, if you have this urge and you kind of you feel this pull to actually understand the problems and your business even deeper, I think then you're onto it. And I've definitely felt that with events. It's just like you can get, the rabbit hole is very deep.
One metric. So what metrics do founders obsess over too much that are actually irrelevant? And what is one metric that you would recommend that they should really focus on? And what metrics do they need to ignore? So 3 questions in one, but all focused on metrics, and how should founders think about that?
I don't know. I sometimes hear founders talking about like churn when they're very small, like super hard to calculate. Also lifetime value, which is a derivative of churn. But I don't know, like it seems like your North Star metric is whatever moves the needle or gives you the kind of the growth trajectory. Like, I mean, as I said, I'm not a SaaS business, so what I look at for my conference is like ticket sales. Like if ticket sales moved year over year, which means that we're doing better marketing this year than last year. And I think like there is, for an early stage startup, like new business, new sales is what is kind of the most important part at the beginning. Later on, of course, you have, other stuff that you need to take care of, and you need to think about like how valuable or how good the software actually solves the problem. But essentially what you're looking at is how are we getting new customers in the pipeline and closing them. So I would say that's the North Star. It's kind of a hard question to answer, honestly. For a lot of businesses, especially as they scale, like there is other like very niche specific stuff that they're looking at. But you can always create derivatives of like if you're very early for new business sale, let's say you don't have a sale, then you can go like with website traffic, you can go with visitors. You can basically look at like your post impressions, for example. I mean, you can always go like a little bit farther down that line, but essentially it translates into sales, and sales is kind of what makes your business live and breathe.
All right, final question. What is one person you would definitely recommend and help us bring on the show, and why?
Leonard Eldić.
Okay.
No,
from
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Leonard Eldić from Tenderly, as she's doing great stuff. I think generally very, very important person here in the ecosystem. If you're looking at, let's say, wider in terms of Europe, I would go with like some operators, like for example Sarah Archer, she's my basically VP of sales in Charmol. She was a boss of mine. She's a very smart sales mind, and worked with a lot of early stage startups as a mentor as well. And I think like she would probably, she's a big fan of Belgrade as well. So I think
Sarah Archer. Okay.
We'll make it happen. We'll invite her to our event in Belgrade, and then let's do the podcast as well.
All right, cool. We got it. Leo, thank you very much for coming on the show. Guys, if you have watched so far, come to Leo's conference, which is 25th to 27th of May this year in Šibenik, right?
Yeah.
Šibenik, Croatia. Hotel resort, meet other SaaS founders and network. Thank you very much. If you're a startup founder from the Balkans, you'll eventually need a US company. To sell into the US market, use Stripe, or raise VC money. But here's the problem. US lawyers charge between $600 and $1,000 an hour. Opening a bank account as a non-resident is a nightmare. You need a US phone number, operating address, and there are a lot of hidden costs plus lawyer lingo you can't understand. This is why we have partnered with Neobase. They are a team of Balkan founders who have been exactly where you are. They're 10 times cheaper than US lawyers, and they handle everything end to end, from the corporation, bank account setup, tax filings, and basically leaving you to focus on your own business. Head to neobase.co, book a free consultation, and mention Scale SCE to get 10% discount off your LLC or C Corp setup.